Welcome back to the Clean for Profit podcast. My name is Colby. I'm the owner of Sierra Window Cleaning out of Auburn, California, and Super Clean Websites. We're an agency that is aiming to help other cleaning businesses get their online presence dialed in. And today I'm joined by another window cleaning business owner, Chip, out of Bishop, California. Thanks for coming on, Chip.
Yeah, thanks.
I appreciate you being willing to chat in the first place, just in Messenger, and for being willing to hop on here, man. Ultimately, my goal is just to get to know other people in the business and learn. I learn something pretty much every time I talk to someone. So you'd be the exception if we hung up and I hadn't learned anything. So I really appreciate
Well,
it,
I hope I
man.
don't disappoint.
For sure, man. I want to note real quick. I don't know if you feel the same way, but we both live in
Mhm.
California. I don't know if you feel ever like you're the misunderstood side of California, living in the mountains on the east side of the Sierras.
Yeah,
I live on the west side, but every time I tell people I'm from California, they think San Francisco, LA, and yeah.
yeah,
So I just wanted to point out that we have that in common.
yeah. I grew up on the East Coast in North Carolina, and it's hard to explain to people that what they think of as California is not where I live.
Yeah.
A bunch of Clint Eastwood movies were shot out here, where Bishop is considered the mule capital of the world, you know, and people think that it's all Teslas and palm trees.
Yeah, I've been recording regular podcasts with a new buddy of mine, Dave. He lives in Tennessee, and we've been shooting each other business ideas back and forth via voice texts every now and then. And I sent him one the other day. I'm in my yard, and near the end of it, my neighbor starts just shooting his gun like repeatedly, and so it totally messes up the voice memo. But Dave hits me back, and he's like, "First off, I never thought I would hear gunshots in your yard. That's awesome. I didn't know they allowed guns in California anymore." So yeah,
Yeah.
that's just a slice of life out on this side. But yeah, man, can you tell me about your business, man? I mean, we just met, so I'd
Yep.
love to hear what services you provide, why you do it, how you got started. Just like riff for me.
Yeah, my business is Eastside Sparkle Window Cleaning. We're pretty much, I would say, 95% window cleaning. We offer some other little services, screen repair, venturing into holiday lighting. That's still in its early phases, but we're mostly window cleaning. And yeah, I got started September of 2022. Actually, purchased a business from a friend. Before that, I moved out here kind of to pursue recreation, and I was building trails, mountain bike trails in Mammoth. That was at the time very fun and fulfilling, but physically demanding and not very well paid. My wife, who moved here from Argentina with no college education, started a condo cleaning business in the same town, and within a few months, she was making more money than me, working less hours, and generally doing better. So I jumped ship and joined the condo cleaning business in Mammoth for a year or two, and then my wife told me about the friend who is selling the window cleaning business, suggested that we buy it. I was hesitant at first, but eventually decided it was a good idea to supplement the condo cleaning business that was very heavy around the holidays, but kind of tapered off the rest of the years. And then yeah, I jumped into that, and very slowly at first, and really enjoyed the work, enjoyed meeting people, getting involved in the community. And yeah, that's been 3 or 4 years ago, and things have expanded quite fast and dramatically, especially in this last year or two.
That's good to hear, man. What did you walk into when you purchased this business? Was it like a book of business, like a client list and maybe some equipment, or did you
Yeah.
pick up employees, or what did that look like?
It was about 60 clients, a couple ladders, a couple buckets, and a couple squeegees. Very basic
Okay.
setup.
Yeah.
And the guy I bought the business from, he had taken another job. He hadn't serviced the clients in 6+ months. He was spread too thin. Started calling these people. They were all desperate to have their windows cleaned. I showed up with a smile on my face, had no idea what I was doing. I think I watched a couple of YouTube videos. The guy who sold me the business gave me about a 30-minute training at his house.
Wow.
So it was a lot of fake it until you make it in the beginning, but the people were just so happy to there was somebody that they could call that would answer the phone, show up with a smile on their face, and at least meet, if not exceed, expectations.
Yeah. That's kind of another thing that we have in common, I think. I live in a town that just has a couple of thousand people in it. But we live in kind of an we live in a large but atomized market. So there's a greater market right next to me that's like, about 150,000 people roughly in our like reachable market. But the market that I was in previously is Sisters, Oregon. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the population is like 3,500 and it's just outside of Bend. I just wanted to make this point for anybody listening that is in a small town and thinks that it might not work. Granted, we're in affluent towns,
Mhm.
but the small town angle can like really crush it if you have good outreach. I'll ask you in a few minutes about how you're procuring new clients, but in some markets, I would imagine Bishop, but certainly Sisters. When I was living up there, my website was terrible. I didn't spend a dime on marketing. All I did for the 3.5 years that we lived up there was one organic Nextdoor post per week,
Mhm.
like on the Nextdoor app. Um, and that booked out $20,000 months for us in month like 9. It's crazy because those markets are so small, but they're so tight knit. And when people hear a recommendation from a friend, it really sticks. So I don't know if you've had the same experience,
Oh
but
yeah.
that's certainly been the experience for me.
Yeah, and I also benefited early on from just a lack of competition in the area. Like I said, my
Yeah.
buddy who sold the business, he had been stretched so thin, he hadn't been able to service these clients in a while. So, yeah, word of mouth was huge, and like you said, in a tight knit community, it kind of spreads like wildfire, and I believe that work begets more work. So when things are busy, there's kind of a momentum that you get, especially in these small towns, when word gets out, um, that you're a competent worker
Yeah.
and and you'll do what you say you're going to do.
It's totally a trope, I think, that people have everywhere, but especially in small towns, like when people find somebody that shows up, has a smile on their face, doesn't screw them over, doesn't break their windows, and does a good job,
Hmm.
they're thrilled.
Yeah,
That's like, it's so funny that like the bare minimum basically
exactly.
is like excellent
Yeah.
in the eyes of a lot of
Uh-huh.
clients. So is it just you right now, or do you have a team helping you?
Yeah, so I've got a guy who's been helping me pretty consistently with the window cleaning. I was very lucky to find him um because he had way more window cleaning experience than I had. He moved into town, didn't
Nice.
have a job. He was a friend of a friend, and I was able to plug him in straight away. And pretty quickly it was clear that I could send him to jobs on his own and that I didn't have anything to worry about. As a matter of fact, like I said, he had way more experience than me. And, sometimes I was referring to him for, how are we going to tackle this situation? He worked in Telluride, which is a
Cool.
land of massive mansions.
Yep.
So he had
Yep.
experience in all sorts of situations, inclement weather, you know, all that sort of stuff. I've got another guy that I've partnered with, a good friend. We're partnered in the Christmas light installation business that we're trying to launch, and then he helps me cleaning windows part time as well.
Hey, if you're a window cleaner or home service pro with a story worth sharing, we want to have you on the show. Clean for Profit is all about real operators building real businesses. So if you've got wins, lessons, or even failures that others can avoid, we'd love to hear from you. Head over to cleanforprofit.com/guest or click the link in the description to get started. All right, back to the episode. Yeah, man. A common theme here, like Telluride, 2,500
Oh
population,
yeah.
and most of that population isn't accounted for because they're only there for 2 months
Hmm.
a year. It's another example of a market that like seems like it wouldn't work, but can actually, especially for a small team, work
Yeah.
massively. Um, I'm sure in your market and in Telluride, um, Tahoe, etc. Like these are places where there's not a ton of homes, but the ones that are there really count. Um, and you have the opportunity for like resort contracts and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Um, is most of your work in Bishop and the immediate surrounding area, or do you kind of dip into Mammoth at all? Because I know Mammoth is like 35, 40 minutes from
Yeah,
you,
so,
or is it farther?
this year, actually this time last year, it's kind of a roundabout story. I had my daughter was born last May, May 5th, 2024. Um,
Congrats,
I
man.
kinda got a little bit anxious at the time and, took a took a state job with Caltrans, um, thinking that that was gonna provide some stability in my life and benefits and all that stuff that I was gonna need to raise a family. But when I started that job, it was immediately clear to me that, unless I had a complete personality change, things weren't gonna work out well. Anyways, I'm
Yeah.
sitting at my Caltrans desk and, I get a text message from a window cleaner who is in Mammoth, saying that she was interested in selling her business, and the wheels immediately started turning. Um, and I was immediately plotting my escape from my desk job. I quit that job in January of last year and then purchased a second business or a second client list in Mammoth. So this was the first year that I expanded into that market, and it's completely different from the market that I work in here in Bishop. We've got a lot of mostly second homeowners up there. I do a lot of dealing with property managers who send me to their clients' second homes. Um, so yeah, I'm working in that resort community and learning the ins and outs of that this year, especially.
If I may ask, we're nearing the end of the 2025 calendar year. What are you expecting in terms of revenue numbers for this year?
Yeah, this year I am thinking I'll probably finish up somewhere around 175,000.
Sweet.
Um,
Not bad, man.
and a lot of that is in this new market. I think last year I did about 70,000. Um, and that was mostly just around Bishop.
So a lot of that, okay, cool. So a lot of that's coming from the new market being
Yes,
Mammoth.
yes. Hmm.
So it sounds like a lot of your clients you've acquired. What percentage would you say of your clients do you get that are fresh, that are coming in from your marketing efforts that you didn't
Yeah,
purchase?
well, like I said, I think work just begets more work, and even like from the client list that I purchased in Mammoth, uh, maybe I may have only serviced half of those clients, but I would say an equal amount or more were just new organic clients that heard there was again this business that I purchased was another owner who was stretched thin and couldn't service all their clients. So there was a vacuum there. So again, there's a new guy in town. He's going to show up. He's going to do what he says he's going to do. He's going to smile. Um, all those things produced a lot of um, organic business, and that's been the same in Bishop. Even though I've purchased these client lists, I would say more than half of my clients are still clients that I've acquired. And the marketing that I've done, I've tried a variety of things. Something that's worked really good in Bishop specifically is postcards. Send
Mhm.
something to people's houses. Um, every neighborhood here has a really nice skyline backdrop view of the mountains. I like to include a picture of what people's views might look like on the postcard and send that to that neighborhood. So if you're in Swall Meadows, for example, you've got a great view of Mount Tom and the Wheeler Crest, and I'll put a picture of that on the postcard. So it's not so generic. People will see
Right.
that and say, "Oh, that's the view that I have," and "Oh, window cleaning. Let me look out my window. Oh, it's disgusting. Let's call this guy right away."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
So that's been a big help. They don't actually deliver mail to houses in Mammoth. Everybody has a PO box, so I can't target neighborhoods in the same way that I do. So, I've also used Google Ads specifically in Mammoth because my business is listed in Bishop, and to get ranking higher, if people search window cleaning in Mammoth, having that ad um, automatically puts me at the top of the list. Again, I don't have a ton of
Yeah.
competition, but just paying the minimum for Google Ads and under Mammoth window cleaning helps me rank high there. Um,
Yeah.
I've dabbled in Facebook ads. I've used Nextdoor ads. But again, the biggest things have been word of mouth and postcards, specifically in Bishop.
Cool. That's cool to hear that that postcards work. I've started my window cleaning business 3 different times. The first time was down here where I'm currently living. Second time was in Sisters, like I mentioned, and then we moved back down here about 14 months ago. The first time I started it, postcards are basically all that I knew how to do, and so that's all that I did do, and that worked really well. I think my conversion rate, like for jobs booked, was like 4 to 5%.
Hmm.
Like it was
Which is,
really
yeah,
high. Um, yeah, it's awesome. Um, I moved up to Sisters, tried a couple one-off postcard mailings. They didn't really work. And then I found the same thing after moving back down here. In 2026, we've created all of our postcard templates and we already have them scheduled and paid for now. So this will be the first time that I've ever really consistently had like a drip campaign going to the same neighborhood over and over again. So we'll see what happens to our conversion rate in 2026, but it's kind of dropped off over the last handful of years. So it's cool to hear that it works in some markets still. Um, so what's your estimating process look like? Do you estimate over the phone at all? Do you have dynamic web forms, or are you doing all in-person
I
estimates?
try to do as many in person as I can. That way you eliminate any surprises. And, funny enough, even doing them all in person, sometimes you get a surprise when you go to actually clean the windows. But around here,
Yeah,
there's a lot of, the terrain is complex. Sometimes a house might be built on the side of a steep hill, or
yeah,
oftentimes you talk on the phone with a homeowner, they tell you they've got 13 windows. You show up and there's 36, that sort of
yeah,
thing. So I try to do everything in person when I can. I base my prices on the size of the window. I price per pane, size of the pane, and I account for access. So a big window that requires a 24-foot ladder is going to cost a lot, whereas a window I can walk up to is going to cost much less. And
yeah.
occasionally, we've got a pretty spread out market. Some jobs I might have to drive an hour or so to. So it's not always practical to uh, go and do an in person estimate there. So occasionally, I'll have a customer just send me photos of their windows, and I'll give them. In that case, it's usually an estimate. When I go to a customer's house, I give a quote, and that's the price that I stand firm. Even if I do run into surprises when I'm there, that's my fault. But if I'm doing it over the phone, I give a um, usually I give a not to exceed price, and I'm conservative on my side. I usually um, give myself some wiggle room.
I think the most common one you run into is the incorrect counting, which isn't the client's fault,
Hmm.
because they don't clean windows all the
Yeah.
time. Like these things aren't necessarily considered. Most clients, for example, when they have a window that opens, so it's two
Hmm.
panes, just think of that as one
Yeah.
window. Um, and I mean, even the front side of the house that we live in right now, like I often send that as a reference photo to my clients because it looks like one, two, three, four, five. It looks like eight
Hmm.
windows, but it's actually a 19 count
Yeah.
total, which just shows the extreme discrepancy. It's over
Yeah.
double what most clients would say. And actually, yesterday I've been doing this for 8 years. I think maybe every like 15th client just insists that I do my best to give them a quote
Mhm.
over the phone or based on their account. I entertain that and just let them know that it's subject to change. Yesterday, we had our very first client that sent us pictures, and the price matched exactly what we would have quoted if we did an in-person
Nice.
estimate. But it's been 8 years to get there, and it's still super unreliable. So, yeah, I have yet to talk to somebody who really reliably does over the phone estimates.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're out there. Maybe, maybe we're just not smart enough, but I don't know. I haven't cracked the code yet. So if you do, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of people doing just like some sort of formula of square footage, type of windows, blah blah blah. It seems like it'd be really hard to nail it, and I've thought about it. There's some neighborhoods where every third house is the same. You know, there might be 3 or 4 iterations
Yeah,
of the same house over and over again, and I
right.
can pretty much assume if it's in this neighborhood, it's a two-story house, it's going to be X amount. But I still like to see them because there can be a lot of things that you don't know unless you're on site. You know, how
Yeah.
dirty are the windows?
I think a lot of guys I think a lot of guys that prefer to do over the phone estimates see it as a huge time
Mm-hmm.
saver, which is
Yeah.
fair, but I don't know, man. At the end of the day, I think the biggest benefit other than not shooting yourself in the foot is that it's the first chance other than picking up the phone when it rings to make a positive
Yeah.
impression on your clients. I mean, I've had estimates that I've done where I do the estimate and they decide that it's not the right time or it's not the right price point,
Hmm.
but they still like
Yeah.
me. And by the time I get home from that estimate, I have two referrals from
Yeah.
them. And you're not going to get that by doing an over the phone
No.
estimate. Um, so yeah, I think it definitely has its benefits. It doubles the commute time for each job the first time you do it,
Hmm.
but I think in terms of retention, making a good impression, it's kind of the way to go.
Yeah.
So what's your price per pane roughly or per count?
Per count, or I guess
Obviously
per
it
per
varies, but
pane. For me, if I can walk up to a window and I kind of like to think of it as, can I wash a window without moving? You know, is it all
yeah.
within this range? Typically, I will do anywhere from $8 a pane. That's inside and outside. That's like a walk-up window that I can wash without moving around or without getting on a ladder. And you know, I've done $50 panes in Mammoth Lakes where I have to get on a 24-foot ladder and wash the window in two sections and then bring that same 24-foot ladder inside of a house in a great room. Um, but yeah, I like you said, those the times when people call and they insist on having an estimate, usually I tell them, if you think about it as $10 per pane, if you're on ground level, then you're probably going to get pretty close.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So you've been doing this a couple of years now. Like what's changed from when you obviously the learning curve was all up front for you. Like for me, for example, I worked for another company for 9 months before moving back down here, which was the first time that I started my own window cleaning business. I had enough experience at that point to go out and do a job myself and basically complete it. I mean, I'd done boom lift work by then. I'd done a lot of third and fourth story water-fed pole work, etc. I had stuff to learn for sure, but I more or less had it down. Other than learning how to do the job itself, what have been some game changers in your personal business as far as like whether it's processes, business philosophies, tools that you've used that have been a big win? What are some wins that you've had in the business?
Yeah, like you said, on the front end, it was all learning how to clean windows, and that was the primary focus for a while. And then once I had proof of concept and saw that the business was growing, I realized that I need to dial in the business side a little bit more. So a couple of big game changers. As we talked before, doing advertisement at all, specifically the postcard, probably doubled my business from year 1 to 2.
Hmm.
That was a game changer. But on the administrative end, this year was the first year that I used a CRM. I got a Jobber subscription. And before that, it was all spreadsheets and Google Calendar and scribbled
Mhm.
notes on napkins on the dash and, trying to answer the phone, emails, all that stuff. Having a CRM has really helped me to uh, not drop the ball because when you're balancing so many, when you've got your information in so many different places, it's easy to have things slip through the cracks. So I don't know if you're familiar with Jobber. I'm sure you use a CRM. I would assume
Yeah, we use Jabber as well.
that's been huge for just helping me keep track of different numbers and metrics and all client information, that sort of thing. From the technical side, this was the first year that I used a water fed pole, and that was under the advice from the second client list that I bought. And in Mammoth Lake specifically, where sometimes you've got a three-story house that's on a 30-degree slope, it can become really quickly impractical and extremely dangerous to be leaning
Yeah,
a 24, 32, 40-foot house up against a ladder on a steep hillside.
yeah.
And also repeat customers now that, I've cleaned their windows a couple of times and cut through all the grime or whatever, going through with a water fed pole really speeds things up. Um, and the product, in my opinion, is just as good, if not better, on those jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, we're definitely leaning into the water-fed pole a little bit more in 2026. I've just been running like a single like a one stage filter
Hmm.
tower for a long time. And we're going to be upgrading that in 2026 to a dual stage
Okay.
finally. Um, Probably get a pump and a second pole so we can run two at the same time. And yeah, we try to get nose to glass every time for a first time
Yeah.
client because, like you said, depending on how long it's been since the windows have been cleaned, depending on who did the new construction
Hmm.
clean, the quality can vary in terms of how much work it takes to get
Yeah.
them back to kind of the status quo clean window. But if you see them every 6 or even 12 months, it's totally viable for water fed pole work after that, and it cuts down the labor time by at least 30%,
For sure.
which is a huge win. I think as far as operations go, it's a big efficiency to start working with a CRM. I did the same thing. Like I've been doing this for 8 years now, and I took way longer than you did to get signed up for Jobber. I mean, we signed up about 2 years ago for Jobber, and it beats the heck out of opening Google Contacts, adding the contact, opening Google Calendar, adding that, going back to Google Contacts after you do the estimate to add the estimate numbers to the notes, scheduling it on the calendar, et cetera, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The other cool thing about Jobber that I'm kind of baking into the agency model that I'm doing with super clean websites is building out some automations um, for quality assurance. Making sure the customers are happy and not waiting to for them either to leave a bad review or to let you know the next time you help them that you missed some
Hmm.
stuff. So, like a quick text 1 to 2 days after the service is done, just to ensure satisfaction, automated review follow up, and then automated rebooking follow up 3, 6, 12 months, whatever the preferred cadence is later. So, we're still working on getting that fleshed out a little bit. I'm trying to build it out in my business first, and then we're going to be offering it to other businesses. But that's an exciting one because I think if there's any money that I've left on the table personally since starting this, just shy of a decade ago, it's been not properly leveraging repeat
Yeah.
business. My repeat business has basically come down to just like personal preference, like who did I like working with, what are my biggest ticket clients, let me call them. Like this guy tips $100 every
Yeah.
time I come by, let's give him a call, he likes me. Whereas like if that was just automated to 100% of my clients, I'd probably have doubled the amount of um, repeat business that I had booked over the last decade, more or less. So that's something that we're really trying to figure out well, so that you don't have to figure it out as well.
Yeah.
It's just kind of done for you.
And that's something I wanna lean into this coming year is, the tier of job where I don't have all those automations, but I think that 2026, I'm gonna sign up for that so I can, yeah, have those automated follow-ups. But also I wanna try to lean into, service agreements with my clients so that because in such a geographically broad area, logistics becomes really complicated really quick, especially in the spring
Yeah,
when everybody wants their windows clean in Mammoth and Bishop at the same time. We're 40
right.
minutes away. And, I have had up to 3 people working for me at a time. And sometimes we can divvy it up and split it up. But if I know ahead of time that this person's windows are cleaned in this date range, every spring and every fall or whatever the frequency is, then could really cut down on the logistical headache that you get from having a huge service area.
Yeah, totally. We have the same thing in terms of a large service area, man. I mean, we like we go to the two GR cities in our area, and that's Grass Valley to Granite Bay, and those are like the extreme ends of
Mhm.
our market. And that's like a to go from one to the other is like a 50-minute
Yeah.
drive. So it's quite large. We live like a little bit towards Grass Valley, in the center, more or less, of that market, but still, it's quite a wingspan. So getting that a little bit more efficient would definitely be a win. Um, cool, man. What have you done any commercial work? Like, what's the biggest ticket that you've pulled down from window cleaning so far?
Yeah, biggest ticket, I mean, some of my residentials have been bigger ticket than some of the big commercials I've done, but,
Yeah, I believe you.
uh, but yeah, I do some commercial work. Actually, I think I say, these are the biggest individual jobs I've done have probably been residential, but as far as my, lifetime value of customers, a lot of those are sorry, commercial jobs that are,
Hmm.
within 5 minutes from my house that pay well and that I do every month. And I really enjoy that. Just kind of like I was talking about the service agreements, you just cut out so much logistics when you know that you're going to be going there every month and it's blocked out on the calendar and they're well paid jobs. But, I've done some big residential jobs that were, $1,500 ticket. I cleaned the county courthouse in Mammoth this year. That was $1,500 exterior only.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think I haven't had any massive, single big ticket jobs. I had a commercial client that um, was booked that was going to be 15,000 for the year for cleanings, but that um, fell through right at the 11th hour. This is an interesting thing about my market. There's county ordinances in the two counties that I operate in. You don't get buildings over 2 stories high, and there are some 3 stories, but they're more like split levels, like a 2-story built on a slope. Um,
Okay,
which is kind of
got
nice.
it.
I don't have to pull out too many tricks to clean most of the windows.
For sure. Is that like a mountain view ordinance? You have to be able to
I
see the
guess
mountains
so.
still?
Yeah, I guess. There's some hotels in Mammoth that are a little taller, but maybe they've got special, um, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they've got those in Bend, Oregon as well, because you can see the Cascades from the city basically at any point. So I think they have a 3-story limit, and even those 3 stories are like, exceptions,
Mhm,
rather than the norm. So I think to your point, like there's definitely a lot of high ticket stuff out there in terms of like what you can make off of one gig. But I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to what you do
mhm,
best. There's a ton of revenue no matter what niche of window cleaning you're in. And like you mentioned, like with recurring business like service contracts, um, my buddy Dave in Tennessee um is doing deals for $99 a month, and they come visit every 3 months, and they do 3 exterior cleans and 1 interior clean a year. The yearly value of a client at that rate is 1,200
mhm.
bucks, and you're cleaning clean windows every
Yeah.
time you go there. You get 50 or 100 or 200 of those contracts, and all of a sudden you're sitting on 5 figures of recurring revenue just as your new
Yeah.
baseline.
And like we were talking about earlier, you have if you're running a quote for every job, you've doubled your travel time or whatever. But if you increase the lifetime value of an individual customer, then the whole operation's a lot more efficient.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, man. I've always really liked trophy jobs. I just think it's my ego more or less, but they're also fun. We live close enough to Truckee and Tahoe that if we can land something that's big enough and makes sense to go out
Sure.
there, it's about an hour away. So we'll see. It would be cool. I'm not like really going hard after it, but it would be cool to land like Olympic Valley, the village, for
Mhm.
example. There, they have a ton of hotel rooms and a whole shopping mall at the bottom of a mountain,
Yeah.
basically. And that would be a sweet contract to
Yeah.
land. That would probably be 15 to 22K
Uh-huh.
exterior only, and they would want it done every year. So those are always fun to like dream about and maybe do some hunting over. But I like the approach with that too, because it's like as opposed to like shotgunning your marketing efforts, you can kind of be a sniper
Mhm.
and like find the property manager, like
Yeah.
find the person that's like in charge of all of that, connect with them on LinkedIn, like actually develop a relationship. So there's a ton of ways to go about it. So what would you tell yourself 2 years ago if you were starting right now?
I would say a big thing is fostering relationships with your clients, and I think that goes a long way, especially in a small market. Oftentimes, I get the zoomies, where you look at your calendar for the day, your schedule for the day, and you're like, okay, I've got to go to these jobs. Boom, boom, boom. There's no downtime. But occasionally, a client wants to sit and talk, and I think that if you can take a deep breath and sit down and try and um it's actually really nice to get to know these people, and that's been a big perk of my business is getting to know my community, and it pays dividends. Those people will refer you, they'll call you back again, and I think just fostering relationships with your clients can be a huge benefit, an unsung technique for growing your business, and also makes it more enjoyable when you like the people you're working
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think that's something where, like, I think most people share that sentiment. The guy that I worked for at first, man, and this is my bad. It was his business. I was working with him one day when I had been working with him for a couple of months, and the client offered me an espresso while I was in his house, and I accepted with
Hmm.
gratitude. Um, and my boss was outside, and I guess like he was a totally reasonable guy, but he had his standards, like, and he has a very successful window cleaning business now, and so that just wasn't communicated beforehand. But he was very
Huh.
bothered by that. But I just think it was differing like business
Uh-huh.
philosophies. At the end of the day, it wasn't my business, so I take responsibility for that one. But um, it just comes down to like who are you working
Mhm.
for? A lot of the time the client hires you and they want the service, they want it done well, and they want you to
Yeah.
leave. And that's the service. And then there's other clients that like, you know, they live alone.
Yeah.
Their kids live 6 states away
Mhm.
and they want to hang out, or they're social. They're a real estate agent. They are in the community and they want to get to know you. So knowing how to gauge that on a client to client basis
Yeah.
is really important, but can certainly pay dividends. So, yeah, couldn't agree more. Sweet. Thanks for coming on,
Of
Chip.
course.
It was a pleasure to meet you, man. I appreciate you being down to come on here and kind of spill the tea on what you're up to.
Yeah.
Um, good luck with the Christmas light
I
business.
appreciate it.
Has that like taken off this year? Or are you kind of aiming for next year? What's the plan with
The
that?
plan was more to lay a foundation this year. Again, these small markets, it's hard to know which angle to take when you're marketing. But actually, on the subject we were talking about earlier with the highest ticket jobs, let's knock on wood. Today, I'm going to talk to the a manager at a huge resort hotel that was just built. I think they, did the whatever grand opening just a few days ago. So we've done enough to, to make it worth it, the investments this year. But if we get that client, it'll be huge. And we're really looking forward to the future, laying a foundation now, getting a portfolio and a reputation, that sort of thing.
Sweet. Right on, man. Well, maybe we'll touch base in the next 6 to 12 months and
Sure.
see how things are going then at that
Yeah,
point.
I'd love to.
Right on, man. Thanks for coming
Yeah,
on.
yeah. You have a good one.